So, hello everyone, online and offline. I'm not quite sure which will be in Greek, which will be in English, but I'll speak in English for my international audience here. I'm thrilled to be welcoming very esteemed colleagues, Dana Papaχρήστου and George Samadas for the first talk, and Βασιλική Lalioti for the second talk of this panel. The panel deals with seemingly heterogeneous materials. On the one hand, the intersection of sound studies and disability. On the other hand, issues of biases in artificial intelligence, recommendation systems for popular music. But of course, as always, there is a very, very important link in those issues. And the link, if I've understood correctly, the abstract has to do with mediation of the sensible, which is also, of course, is registered in the title, Prosthetic Devices, Listening and the Mediated Limits of the Sensible. So, welcome. I'm Pavlos Antoniadis, by the way, University of Ioannina, and the floor is yours, Dana and George Samadas. Just before you start, I'll give some biographical information, if I can locate them fast. Dana is a media theorist and artist, focusing on the combination of arts through the use of new media, and currently at the University of Thessaly, Department of Creative Media and Cultural Industries. Giorgos is a social anthropologist focusing on sound and walking as cultural practices, as well as an artist who treats the same media as artistic means of expression and running the TWIXTlab. Okay, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pavlos. You're great. Also, thank you for organizing this conference. It is amazing to see you again, and also to be able to hear all these wonderful talks that were here today. You want to start?
I can. Yeah, I can absolutely start. It might be for those who haven't listened to us before. It might seem a bit paradox to discuss deafness, because this is our main topic in a musicological conference about musicology. Of course, it is a very recent practice, an older practice, but revisiting older practices makes it very, very, very relative in a way. Maybe I should introduce. Yes, maybe I should introduce that this is very solid package as a research package, and also a Creative Europe funded project. We're very happy to have finally delivered yesterday. So we are super relieved in regards to that.
So bear with us.
Yes.
It's the last.
I'm saying this not only because to share my relief about getting over with it, but also to highlight the fact that it's very hard and very complicated for me as a project manager was to switch from different domains from the course of analysis of how to put things and make sense to them in this context, and to translate them into a different context, which is the bureaucratic context, which is also mediates all those sort of fundings and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, that this is a research that was not initially meant as a means to produce knowledge, but rather to produce art, to do artistic works. That doesn't mean we need to compartmentalize all those different facilities and those different functions. But this is to say that it will take me a little bit time to digest and produce original theory out of it. So going back to, I do want to stand in a few concepts that were taking us throughout the research and practice project. One, the first concept is exactly stems from this paradox of how irrelevant or relevant might be, to bring the aspect of reception of music and sound within the experience of deaf. However, yes, this is something that we kind of framed with the term naturalized exclusion. It's not natural exclusion because sometimes we refer to nature and as a means of legitimizing exclusions, right? So we use the term naturalized exclusion. And I'm quoting Jessica Holmes here, by the fact that deafness has long served as the universal accepted disqualifying impediment to musical engagement and apprehension. Because of two related misconceptions. So the enduring assumption that hearing is central to musical experience, in conjunction with an extreme impression of deafness as a total oral loss, which is not the case. And more recently, in something that we met into our practice, and we tried to address it, but also incorporate it, the tendency to reduce deaf listening to tactility. As narratives about inborn or inherent sensory acuities among the deaf proliferate in popular imaginary. So there is a series of aspects, and also this has to do with all the prosthetics, all the new technologies, all the techno epistemologies, and the market-oriented developments that take us to understand listening solely through vibrations. So another aspect, and it is the aspect of diversity. And in a wider sense of the term, we're using oral diversity, the term coined by Andrew Hugo and John Drever, which arises. Oops. I'm sorry, I could easily read it there, but you can also easily read it there, right? Oral diversity arises from the observation that everybody hears differently. The assumption that we all possess a standard, undifferentiated pair of ears underpins most listening scenarios. But this is demonstrably incorrect. We may well ask whose ears are standard and whose ears have primacy. This is to say that also in our understanding of what sound is and what music is, we were constantly challenged with the fact that we're supposed to, and we are, I don't disregard the fact that we belong and we're coming from a privileged listening majority, and we're addressing less privileged, excluded from, deaf individuals, particularly teenagers, right? And of course, this disadvantage does not necessarily stem from the fact that it is numerically or medically subscribed, but from the fact that this entails a whole other sets of exclusions. For example, that music is not taught in deaf schools, or a mother would not sing a lullaby to her deaf child for one reason or another. So in a way, deafness becomes not only a medical, or not at all a medical constraint, rather than a whole package of social constraints. So maybe that was a time to address the social model we embrace, but maybe I should also give you the floor because I can go on forever.
No.
Okay.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting when it comes from an anthropologist, because there are some specific topics of the field, the specific properties of the field, that it's good that you address them. Here, maybe we can say that our methodology was based on a specific field. We worked on the schools for the deaf and hard of hearing, and we also worked in the National Opera of Greece. We're going to briefly say a few things about what we did now that it's closed, and some few steps from what we are planning in the future, and then maybe we could discuss about what this project was. Many of you have already listened to several stages of the project, so I think it would be interesting. So our methodology was ethnographic participant observation. We participated, we created also artworks together with the deaf. We also explored a lot of things. It was not something that we tried to impose on them, a specific research model that we tried to impose. We were observing as well. We were exploring the processes of art making and art learning with the deaf and hard of hearing in the schools. And sometimes it was also like a participatory design project, a participatory design research, because we didn't know exactly from the beginning, we didn't have a set of exact steps that we're going to follow. So from the initial idea through the development and the know-how and how to, we try to do it together with the deaf individuals so that we have so that we can attend to their needs, because we didn't know them. We worked a lot with workshop-based artistic processes, and then we tried to do a lot of sensory translation with various media, sound and image and drawing, singing, dancing, technologies and props and artifacts, and we tried to combine them to see how they can function as a way to translate the visual, the technological, the embodied into something different that would be something completely new and not sound. What I want to say by that is that we did not focus on the sound or the listening or the hearing or the lack of it. We focused on finding a new way of understanding sound and a new way of understanding, experiencing sound with the deaf individuals. And of course, we, as we were inside the school, we focused a lot on education. Here, as Γιώργος was saying before, it's something just to mention that we followed the social model of disability and not the medical model or the charity model, the tragedy model, meaning that we went to, we didn't treat people as patients. We didn't think that they were patients. We didn't think also that we came to help them to listen to a world that they don't listen to because of some impairment. We went there to explore together different and alternative ways of listening, as musicians and the deaf students, the deaf pupils, as a field, as people that could help us explore this as well. Of course, saying this, now that I say this, it's just reflecting as well. It sounds very sweet and interesting, but on the other hand, it is an institution. It was a project that was extremely, it was heavily funded. It was very institutional. It's a Creative Europe project. So this is maybe something to discuss as well and to think about. This was our field. This was the, I'm going to be very brief. This is the special school for deaf and hard of hearing in Argyroupolis. These are some of the students and teachers there as well. We had a really good time with our field. And we did a lot of activities. First of all, we had 4 workshops. 3 of them were in the school with Tatiana Remundou, Lampros Pigounis, Kalliopi Takaki, Γιώργος Μιζήθρας, Petros Flamboulis, and Orestes Karamanlis. This was the 3 semesters in the school. There were 3 artworks produced from these semesters at the school with their curatorial text. And then we went to the Greek National Opera to do a year-long seminar. We collaborated with many field experts, you can see there. I also have, I have them here, like in more details. This is Leslie Putnam and David Bobia. They were our 2 artists in residence from Canada. They're both working on deaf art and deaf on vibrotactility as well. And we also did some conferences and some talks with expert collaborators like Rani Anastasiadou, for example, or Panos Panopoulos and others. And here were our key questions. As you can understand, we focused a lot on technology and technological mediation because we wanted also to explore this as well and to see how technology can create these alternative ways of listening, how they can be used in an educational context, and which technologies can assist us in understanding and in exploring the sound, in exploring vibrotactility and exploring the sound in different ways. We also wanted to not just research, but also create. So we were making artworks together with the students. And then we wanted also to know, what do we learn from these artworks as an artistic research, as a process that was based on research, but then the outcome is an artwork and a curatorial text. So that was interesting for us. then, of course, we wanted to see, Giorgos talked about this naturalized exclusion. But it was very interesting at the beginning when you said this. When we went to the school, there was nothing, the students had nothing to do with music. They had never had a class that they were taught music or sound or even dance.
They had some dance.
Yes, but it was, so it was a struggle for us to go and see what is the deaf experience of music and how do people perceive it? Because as you said, Giorgos, being deaf does not mean that you have a complete oral loss. It means that you're listening, you have your cochlear implant, maybe you have a hearing aid, maybe you're hard of hearing. So it doesn't mean that you're not listening to anything, but what is your experience? And how can we use this experience, this personalized experience, because everybody has a different audiogram. How can we use it so that we can create together, for example, a piece of music or an artwork or a sound installation, that we can all listen to it in different ways. Some people with sitting on a bench that is vibrating, but others with playing with a spectrogram, so how it can be for everybody inclusive.
If I may interrupt, that also has to do with our own perspective in terms of our engagement with the social model, because you can also see other models working on the same context. For example, the same kids just before we went to Christmas to sing the Christmas carols to the Nea Demokratia offices. This is definitely going into the the charity model and the religious model, which is a different way of understanding, different way of framing and understanding the experience, and it can easily result to the poor kids. And this was not at all our intention, of course. And we did our best, and I don't know how it goes back to the field, and that if we did not generate this understanding ourselves, absolutely. On the opposite, I don't know if their view of themselves through us changes. That mean that this is what I mean. We need some time to digest.
Of course, and this also goes. It's perfect. Comes perfectly with the ethics as well. Not to steal their agency, not to trying to give them the way to really understand. For us to find a way to really understand how we deal with this field. And as you said, the charity model, all the poor people that comes as a stereotype in the Greece and in internationally, I guess, comes in contradiction with what the deaf community wants, the deaf pride and all the disability discourses that are now being discussed. So yes, it was very important for us not to steal the agency of the children and to try to find out how to stop perpetuating the stereotypes. Last, our relation, how we can establish a relation with music, and we can establish a relation with sound art inside the school. How we can share the experience of listening without hearing as a sense. And that was interesting for us, not in the sense of augmenting other senses because of the lack of one, but how to combine, to experiment with the properties of our own practices, with the properties of our musical knowledge as musicians and musicologists, and using technology, using media, but to really say how we can alter our own practice so that it can be inclusive, which is of course very difficult. It's not something that we can answer, or maybe we can say that we did it, but we definitely had this in mind. Also very briefly, this is Tatiana Remundu. She came for our first let's say semester in the school. Tatiana is a deaf artist. She has done a lot of work based on video, sound, sign language, and lip reading or speech reading. This is what she did, a work named Unicorn, and it was an interactive installation in the school, in the theater of the school. For the second, this is, okay, some drawings of the children and some interaction with the installation. I'm just going very fast through it because I think that I don't know. I think that maybe we can focus more on the discussion later. This was Labros Pigounis. He's a performance artist. This is his work, Micropolitics of Noise in Bernanke Museum. What he did for us is he revisited this audio sculpture in material bodies. He did this in the school. It was very interesting. He kind of explained the physics beyond Chladni's plate, which I don't know if you know, it's when you put sugar or salt in a plate, and then by vibration it makes wonderful patterns and different in each frequency. So it was nice for the children to see and to play with it, and then to remake it. And then we went for the first semester, we had a bigger team, and it was a twofold activity, tangible radio class on air.
I think this one was the one that we displayed in the...
listening as witnessing symposium, exactly. What we did there, what you see is that we created a radio device, a prototype radio device, with the help of the entire team, of course, and the University of Thessaly and other people. That was receiving. It was a normal radio, receiving and transmitting. The broadcast, of course, was very limited because it's not legal to broadcast in larger range. The story was made by the children, and the podcast was made by the children, and then the story was read by the children, which is another important fact. Another issue of this stereotyping is that people think that deaf people do not speak. This deaf mute that is now not used, and this is good. Kind of deprives the deaf people their ability to actually talk and have a voice. And so this was interesting for us to listen to the deaf voices of our pupils. And this was the technology used for the radio to be devised. It was, how do we say, 3D printed. 3D printed, yes. Based on its autonomy, the mobility, because we moved it also. It went to France. Its weight was important, how we will transmit and receive within a legal range, and how it would be vibrating and playing back this podcast. And then by the touch, we could listen to the radio, to the broadcast. And this is a part of the processes of how these stories were made, and how we were listening to making stories, making sounds, and how we were, let's say, oralizing our stories in a sense. And this is our device. And then we went to the Greek National Opera. It was a seminar that was called Sound as an Embodied Experience. We created this maestro that was created with Super Collider. It's called radar, and it goes like that, like a clockwise. And it gives instructions on when to play music and how the pitch sometimes, or maybe how strong we can play something of an instrument, or what note, not exactly what note, but what range. So it was like a maestro. And then they made an amazing, we made some scores. We also visualized some sounds, how music can be visualized in many ways. You can see there Orestes Karamanlis as well. We did some sound editing, like a digital literacy of what we were doing. We created these nice laptop cases that were vibrating to be used as pillows. And then we did a wonderful
relaxed performance.
Yeah, it was a relaxed performance in the foyer of the Greek National Opera. We wanted it to be a relaxed performance so that everybody can participate, young children, people with autism, people coming in and out, So we called it relaxed performance, and it was a very nice experience. And these are, here you can see also again the radar for bioresistant list. And here are some of the technologies that we use. This is not something very extremely difficult. There are oscilloscopes, waveforms, spectroscopes, spectrographs, tone generations. We found MusicLab, some from experiments, and we use them in many ways in educational contexts.
They all pose questions, right? It's not solutions we found. It's like they all pose questions. Does this work to you? Does this not work to you? Why does it work to you? What doesn't, you know, and so on.
And
Sorry.
no, you're absolutely right. And what we're doing now is we're working with surface dance area on expanding this research on wearable technology, and we're using vests, woodger vests that are made for gaming mostly. So we're trying to see how they can connect with maybe with a deaf experiencing, let's say, a concert, in dance, in any context. Actually, we're trying to explore it now. We were late today because we had a meeting with some members of the deaf community exactly to see what can be made with this. In general, how we can feel like with our bodies, and how we can experience the sound in many other ways, and it's something yet to be explored. Maybe you can show it also, because we really have it here.
It would look like I'm a salesperson. I don't want to be like
No, we don't sell them.
yeah.
But it would be interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Okay. We still have 2 minutes for that.
2 minutes,
If it's-
okay. So 2 minutes, we are very close to the 2 minutes. So I wanted to say that we try to, in our research and in our practice, we try to adopt socially engaged modules. That means that we try to address an issue that is maybe even beyond us, that maybe we cannot even answer, but we try to do this, and we gave, here is the,
Yeah. So
here you can know better.
okay, originally it was built for gaming, so possibly the aesthetics of it is why it looks like a robot a little bit.
You don't have to buy it, because soon we'll have some of those, and we will be giving, to the community, to people that want to experiment with it. So yes.
One thing to, please, if you want, but I want to say something about this as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, one thing that struck me initially with the discussions, with current discussions we have within the deaf community, is the aspect of visibility, right? This is a constant demand on behalf of the disability communities in Greece and in general. Our project was called Audibility, right? However, when this was brought out as a means by the person who's bringing them, as a means for accessibility to theater for performances, one person said, "So what? Am I going to go to the theater and wear this? I just want to see a show, right? I don't want kids be showing me, pointing at me and saying, 'Oh, why is this gentleman wearing this?' Or being searched on the street, because that also looks like a vest or of some, military vest. So the aspect of invisibility and the aspect of inaudibility might also be a political position of
Exactly.
dwelling.
Exactly. So just very briefly, sorry. Thank you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
For reminding us. Very brief. No, if it's possible. Very briefly, we try to give more emphasis on the process of what we were doing. As I said before, we cannot say that we have a fixed outcome of what we did, and we can at this point say that this was the outcome and the results of our project. It was more of a process for us and for our interlocutors, the participants of our workshops. And just to finish, I think that, as I said at the beginning, we try to experiment with new musical and new oral settings, and we find this important. We don't know exactly where this is going to get us, but we want to experiment with the properties of music, to create new listening modules, to see how we can also, as composers, because we're also sound artists, you know, how can we compose in different ways, how we can make these modules more process-oriented, to include the educational, this multisensorial through technology, and how we can make these processes accessible to more people and to educate, maybe to co-create. And we don't believe that we have to compromise our artistic focus on sound because we're working on that, but we believe that we can alter the field of musical creation, and we will see what will happen with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you so much for this thought-provoking presentation. Tons of questions accumulating already. But let's keep them for a moment, and we pass to Βασιλική Λαλιώτη from the National and Capodistran University of Athens. Βασιλική is tenured assistant professor of anthropology of performance at the Department of Music Studies there. She's the author of the books Why Can't We Get Rid of the Human Nature, Posthumanism and Digital Performance, as well as quite a few other books, such as The Soundtrack of Our Lives, Current Issues in the Study of Popular Music, editor of the book Digital Technologies and the Arts, and co-author of the book Because It's in Our Blood. She will talk about a very hot topic today, very hyped as well. And the title bears a provocative question: whose intelligence is artificial intelligence? I think we don't need the speaker there. Popular music, affect, and the nature of the artifice. Whose intelligence is artificial intelligence? Question mark. Popular music, affect, and the nature of the artifice. Vasiliki, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and to speak today with you. I'm grateful for all the presentations today. They were all excellent and very provocative, mind thinking, thought-provoking. Sorry. How the impossible, I think, duty to keep you awake by that time. So I will start. So disclaimer, I'm not an AI, so it's actually the first time I'm trying to approach those issues, although I have a bit of experience on digital, the osmosis of digital technologies and performing arts, but artificial intelligence is the first time that I try to, so please excuse if you hear any commonalities. I want to share some first thoughts that came up to my mind as I was reading about music and artificial intelligence. So I begin, and I hope we can discuss about some things. So before I begin, I wanted to say that actually I have a very good bridge with the previous presentation, because actually my main question here is, I think the recommendation systems and AI in general puts the crucial question about human essence. About I was glad to hear that you were thinking we shouldn't begin with lack of something, because that means that we know what the wholeness is, and then what is lack of. So actually, this is one of my central anthropological questions. Not a question, but for anthropology and technologies, I think it's very crucial. So I begin. So according to the definition given by Born, Morris, Diaz, and Anderson in their recent white paper, Artificial Intelligence, Music Recommendation and the Curation of Culture, AI is not just a specific technology or suite of technologies, but also a set of discourses about technology a technological manifestation, a rhetorical tool, and a rich surface for dreams, fantasies, and cultural and commercial speculations. It's a magnet for venture capital, a strategic tool for attracting research funding, and a lure for business and organizations that seek to automate, optimize, and outsource complicated tasks. It is at once a promise, a technical reality, and a volatile experiment that deepens interdependencies between humans and machines in ways we do not yet understand, but are nonetheless advancing with accelerating speed. Within this wider frame of understanding it, AI is, and its relationship to popular music has attracted the attention of researchers who mainly focus on 4 areas of study. First, on assumptions built into recommendation systems, that is, on the exploration of the theory of the listening subject and of the theory of music at play in these systems. Second, it's the impacts of AI on platformization and music production. Third, it's the impacts of AI on the political economy of music distribution. And four, on the effects of global services on local musical cultures and issues of diversity. Although these studies prioritize the exploration of what's the new that AI brings to popular music, they also recognize that new technologies often reframe, exacerbate, and revive long-standing issues concerning the production and distribution of music, acknowledging thus it as the most recent moment in the long history of the wider entanglements between cultures and technologies. My presentation focuses on recommendation systems and how they create the listening subject and music itself. So recommendation systems, as their name imply, are systems whose aim is to suggest songs and other musical content to users. They are usually found in various online platforms such as Spotify, Netflix, and YouTube. And in order to achieve their aim, they are usually presented as machines, which not only are different from humans, since they possess unique abilities of analytic content management, content individuation, and high accuracy and efficacy, but they are completely separate from them. The removal of the human variable is key. It displays the separation of the social and the technical that aims to leverage the universality and effectivity of technology, as Bourne says, while at the same time this universality provides space for technologies to be aligned with larger structural and institutional goals. In his recent anthropological study of music informatic researchers who design recommendation systems, Seaver, his studies of 2019, it's all this, all my citations is all the literature use is very recent because the subject is very recent. So he shows that these systems are products of collective processes. Amongst others, many scientists, data engineers, product managers, and corporations in infrastructures contribute to these processes. Recommendation systems are actually socio-technical systems, that is, systems that build on particular ideas concerning the nature of the listening subject. Prey uses the term algorithmic individuation, and of popular music. As far as the nature of the listening subject is concerned, this is mainly identified with a neoliberal subject, a subject that is supposed to swim in a vast and uncharted historical musical archive. In order to navigate this archive and manage its relationship to music, this subject needs the recommendation algorithm. It is also a subject, the musical taste of whom is supposed to evolve according to a universal logic derived from an analysis of the aggregated behavior of millions of listeners. In this modeling, the complexity and multiplicity of subject construction processes, as well as various social and cultural and bodily aspects of music are suppressed, while any alternative idea that musical taste or musical identity may evolve by moving in unpredictable directions, by jumps or breaks, or through unruly processes of branching and inversion, or through surreal associations, is unconscionable. As far as the nature of music is concerned, this is mainly identified with particular recorded versions of the global commercial popular music. Mechanical classifications of sound, pitch, contour, tempo, meter, and beat are presented as representative of an intelligent analysis of music, which is transformed into particular formal patterns, latent in the data stream, just waiting to be mathematically recognized. Critical elements related to bodies, socialities, materials, sound production and transmission, devices, spaces, locations, and sound environments are absent. Music is not only identified with signal and the universal formal unit, the 3 to 5 minutes track, but is also stripped off from any performative and aesthetic aspects that define the multiplicity and variety of the musical phenomenon, of what music is. By now, it may has become clear that within recommendation systems, listeners and musics are being simplified, objectified, and universalized. They are transformed into neutral data that can be collected, saved, copied, normalized, become commodities. Overflowed by the racist, economic, and gender biases of their programmers and programming institutions, databases used by the altruistic algorithms and their many coded cousins, as Benjamin says, make decisions that create new and recycle long-standing cultural prejudices and hierarchies. Perceived and promoted as objective or progressive, recommendation systems are sites of algorithmic coloniality, spaces where the historical structural inequalities of racial capitalism, colonialism, and patriarchy continue to exist. As a way of resisting algorithmic colonialism, a turn to affect is often proposed. Affective computing and various efforts to create computers that show human emotions are dated already back in the 90s. Aligned to the ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI in 1997, this effort aimed at building, I quote, AI systems that need to be human-centric, resting on a commitment to their use in the service of humanity and the common good. End of quote. Resting on specific ideas about collective consciousness or the collective nature of human intelligence, this modeling represents affects as specific responses to specific events and reproduce obsolete definitions of culture as a bounded concept and of affect as universal. Social experience is placed as something that is static and deterministic, while the codifying of emotions is already culturally determined and defined by the ontologies and epistemologies of AI creators. Another way of resisting algorithmic colonialism is a turn to affect, both as an openness to the enchantment of life, as the ability to be moved by and critically connected with others, humans and non-humans, and as a method of tracing new formulations of anthropological knowledge, that is the cultivation of an affect between ethnographers and their interlocutors, instead of seeking to pose boundaries between animate and inanimate. The emergence and study of affective political communities, that is, of political communities whose members are affectively connected, and the presence of AI is utilized for the questioning and the subversion of specific technological interventions, may contribute to algorithmic decolonization. Grassroots communities of solidarity, such as Data for Black Lives, Deep Learning in DABA, Black in AI, and Queer in AI, build AI systems that critically view supposedly universal concepts of human rights and well-being by cultivating different values and practices than those promoted by dominant recommendation systems. Greater cultural diversity of listeners or musics within existing colonial algorithmic systems cannot, in my view, promote their decolonization. Wider inclusion may only reinforce dominant Western ideas and practices onto which these systems are founded. One of these ideas and practices is the relegation of machines to the role of surrogate bodies. It's a concept that uses Atanasoki and Vora, 2019, of the bodies that as slaves, women, Black people, workers, and many others, free humans, or more precisely, the liberal humanist figure of man, as Weheli says, right, from having to perform dull, dirty, repetitive, and degraded tasks, while the surrogates themselves continue to be dispossessed and exploited under the intersecting logics of racial capitalism, colonialism, and patriarchy. Departing from different worldviews, however, affective political communities, such as the communities constructed around the ones I mentioned before, and another one which I would like to focus, the work of artists like REA, develop alternative AI protocols and new forms of artifice which resist the violence of the colonial ones. Although it does not focus on music, REA departs from Aboriginal worldview to design indigenous AI and reinforce freedom to perform non-binary Kamilarai Y1 Biripi, my Aboriginal ways of being and country that are embodied, affective, alive, powerful, and sovereign. Drawing on various artists and academics whose work has contributed to the creation of new autonomous platforms of indigenous activism, REA's media art practices create an unoccupied space, a space that exists beyond the colonized area of traditional arts. Here, machines are not viewed as slaves or objects of human manipulation, but as non-human kin of the indigenous peoples of the First Nations. The new AI is based upon I quote, kin-making with the machine and generated through a collaboration that aims to understand the new territory of the computational virtual world. It also aims to knit this world to their existing understanding of their lives lived in real space and claim it as their own. And this brings me to my final thoughts. The ways in which recommendation systems in popular music are built and often studied, the ways in which recommendation systems in popular music are built and often studied, reflect and reproduce dominant Western notions of the human. Within the wider humanistic aesthetic or poetic tradition of thinking, the human has been understood as a species mainly characterized by an ability to vary itself and then purvey its own global and diverse expressions. Proceeding from a resilient conception of who we are, artifice is a form of creation that enhances, extends, and expresses our being. It is a conception that is tied to the notion of the work of art or art object. That is, an object that is there to be viewed, heard, appreciated, criticized, archived, remembered. Accordingly, like a book, a film, a painting, or a song, the human subject can be extended and archived. It becomes possible through practices of collecting, surveying, appropriating, viewing, or studying. If we understand life as that which extends itself through artifice, we produce more and more music data, and then the listening subject needs more and more inclusive recommendation system to navigate their ocean, then we perpetuate a dominant way of life that manipulates artifice in order to extend and preserve itself. What would happen, I inspire here from Colebrook, what would happen if we understood all life as artificial life and all intelligence as artificial intelligence? If we disconnected artifice from the human and ceased to view it as its supplement, what would happen if we understood life as a series of artifices, of mutations that create everything, from amoeba to body politic and recommendation systems? Creating affective political communities like the ones mentioned above may perhaps help us transcend the Western the Western modern self of social life, where to be is to be an ever-flourishing individual, for whom making is always self-making. A racial and patriarchal concept founded on the human essence that has been constructed in relation to those who have been deemed non-human or not quite human, those who lack any capacity to morally reason and empathize, who are objectified and enslaved, while the fully human liberal subject is granted rights and freedom. Thank you.
Vasily, thank you so much for this illuminating talk on algorithmic coloniality as it is. And there is, of course, an emergent theme that connects to my mind, which is biases and stereotypes about the sensible as well as the intelligible. So I think that's a very common theme of the panel eventually, indeed. And maybe we take some questions from our guests on WebEx, if there are any. Otherwise, we might want to...
Just to get things started, thank you both, all three of you, for these very thought-provoking presentations. Vicky, you said so much, I need to digest it. I don't have a question currently, but it was really very, very, very rich, your presentation. I have a question for the two of you. We usually consider the deaf, like, as you said very well, like a blog, a sort of, people who all, fall into the same category. So my question is, were you able, through your research and your contact with the deaf people, to somehow sort of start understanding their listening experience as varied? So did this emerge at all? Different identities in listening, or different tastes, different aesthetic, different cultural, so different, were you able to comment a bit on that?
Yeah, you want to, well, just very briefly, and then you can, this is a huge issue, of course. First of all, I do not think that any community is an homogeneous community, because this is something very strange to say, but especially in this case, exactly because of what you said, there is an oral diversity that is huge. There are people that, they are sublimely deaf, or that they have put out their cochlear implant because they don't want it, from people that are, they're using the cochlear implant and they are they do not even sign. So there are huge differences within the community, and we cannot say, although we understood these differences quite in the beginning, we also had a community liaison. We also in the school, you see a lot of individuals, but we cannot say that we have addressed all of this community, to be honest. We try to stay with deaf with a capital D. That means people that use the sign language as their mother tongue, which was it was a choice that we made because we went into the school, and the school teaches the sign language. So we didn't really. We opened in the Greek National Opera. We opened to everybody, but still, it was this part of the community that was more eager to come and meet us. I don't know if you want to add something, but you're absolutely right. It's a huge community. We did not don't even scratch the surface of.
Yeah. What was very obvious also to us, especially in the school when we went, there was a huge diversity in terms of class, where you come from, and that might reflect also on the access to wearable technologies, particularly hearing aids, not so much cochlear implants, but access to the information about cochlear implants might be a thing as well. So class might also be, or ethnic origin, might also be different factors that affect the deaf person's experience. Well, like intersectional.
Refugees from camps or Roma individuals, it was a huge differences there. You could see them.
Yeah. Other than that, I can understand various ways and layers or categories of engagement with the music as a social experience. From the first step of being, yes, I can make it. I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I want to participate in the listening people's experience to the fullness. And that's something that's very easily understandable, but it's also promoted by all those wearable technologies marketing, because they regard deaf experience as being an illness or a malaise, and it can be cured by wearing the CI. And that's often like there's a very persistent motto that now that this technology is out, soon deafness will be extinct. But we're talking about culture here. It's not about just the diversity, sensory diversity. So what does it mean to have a culture extinct? That's kind of ethically, to say the least, controversial, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that individually every person can go to and rely to have access to at the end of the day, right? So you can understand like a basic engagement of, having access to the majority, what the majority has. But you can also see some smaller niche in terms of the materiality or the corporeal perception of sound, the genre of deaf raves, for example. That might be a common ground. The strong bass and the loud volumes. One could say that every rave is a deaf rave because of the volume of the sound. But deaf raves are coined differently because I think they also more bright, because visibility is another aspect of communication, and sign language is always present. So that's another, taking to cultural, deaf culture, ways of access to it.
I hope we covered.
Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe to follow up a bit from this question, I was wondering, I know you're still processing this data and this whole huge project with multiple manifestations, but I'd love at some point to have like a sample of the voices, of the responses of the very listening subjects there, because that was something I personally was hoping to see in the presentation, like even a small sample of that, like what do they make out of this universe of mediations with sound?
You mean like what they have created, or like their
like some documentation of their own like perception and following actions, because that safeguards also against the danger of unethical grounds of appropriating or using.
Absolutely.
So I think their presence as testimonies of the project are also very necessary.
They need to be there.
So that's a very interesting idea.
I think at the symposium we played it. The readings.
Yeah, we had the broadcast, the podcast and broadcast from the third semester when we played it, all of it, and we also brought the radio. It also went to the Viennese Biennial and the Architecture Viennese. Yes, but we don't have testimonies. That's true.
Yeah.
We went to the school and we played the videos that we made from the documentation, but we didn't record this.
Right.
But it's a very nice idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Probably you would need ethical
Forms of
from
consent.
the parent.
Yeah.
But that's
With
more
guidance.
complicated, I think.
It's really hard to do that because of the setting and also the cultural setting and the where the kids coming from.
Yeah.
It was very hard for the school to communicate with the parents.
I think because they're doing a lot of programs, they have from the beginning,
they
some
have
paperwork made already. So with this is how we could get in. This is how we could take videos, but we're not publicizing them at all. They are just for us.
There is a comment in the chat which I need to read. On the previous presentation, it's by Mrs. Krisikou. On the previous presentation, it's interesting to see that special schools that supposedly tend after students with disabilities are still not able to accommodate them appropriately, therefore further proving points made within the social model, not so much due to the lack of funding. Okay, that's a comment, so I don't know if
Thank you.
have anything to add to it. And I think there is nothing else. Okay, Leandros.
Yes, thank you both for your presentations. Listen, okay, your presentations have a lot of comments, but again, they're quite different. One is in the level of, let's say, collective consciousness, if I could say what the artificial intelligence may do in the categorizing different genres and creating a specific economy for the listeners. And on the other hand, prosthetic device create a different kind of haptic economies. And I was wondering, like, due to the, let's say, for example, in your example, we have this idea like that the deaf people cannot quite listen and hear the way like we understand, but at the same time, prosthetic devices, like they translate in a lot of ways these impressions into haptic stimuli. And I was wondering, I mean, but these stimuli are not sound per se. On the contrary, they cross sound in vibration, the concept of vibration. But this is a derivative effect. And I was wondering if we create for the deaf people not sound per se, but a derivative effect that simulates sound in the concept of rhythm, haptic stimulation in different vibrations due to the concept of frequency and so on. And at the same time, how this, again, concept of the derivative, how AI as, again, as a, in a sense, as a collective consciousness in a lot of quotes, like consciousness in the sense of what can be datafied and in what way can an intelligence can create results out of these quantifications. But at the same time, artificial intelligence indeed creates a derivative sphere for listeners to be engaged with specific genres. And I was wondering what kind of derivative cultures, musical cultures, what kind of derivative senses are created because of prosthetic devices and the mediation of the sensible in general, no less of consciousness itself. I mean, these are things that we will see, obviously, like in years to come. But anyway, if you want to comment something, because we're not talking about, you know, we're talking about extra senses or of derivative senses.
Yeah. Does anybody want to? Well, very, very briefly, and then maybe somebody else wants to take yes, it is a new senses. And when we were talking about alternative ways of trying to explore alternative ways of listening, this is exactly what we meant. Because first of all, when we said about the oral diversity, nobody really listens with a golden ear in the sense, and nobody has the golden sense of you know, taking the information in a perfect way. So in this sense, try to explore this diversity. I think that it creates a new sense in a sense. Yes, I do agree with you.
Maybe Vasiliky, you have a word about Leonard's comment?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can actually answer or comment on this, because for me the questions are very new, and so I don't have a very clear idea, but probably I will elaborate a little bit on what I said, that maybe it's artificial intelligence is not just one thing, like humans is not just one thing. So actually, and that's why I think it's wrong to ask for more inclusive recommendation systems or more inclusive technologies, because inclusion means that we acknowledge there is the real thing, and we want to be included in the real thing, although we are different in whatever way. So I believe that the experiments, artistic experiments, like the ones I mentioned, or probably there are even more, I haven't done any research, can be an answer how we use affect as a way of connection that doesn't divide, but creates solidarity, creates communities. I don't know if I heard today that the term is not very, in anthropology, I'm not sure if I know if I understand this anyway, but maybe that's this multiplicity probably, and coexistence of creating different AIs. And also we don't control AI, okay? Now we have deep learning AI. They learn by themselves. We are not, I mean, these notions of control, ownness, are very Western ways to think. I mean, it was very interesting that the different worldviews who see as kin is a very different way of associating.
In Haraway's way. In Haraway's way.
In a Haraway, yes, of course. And well, I stop here because I loop because I don't have any other.
Maybe we should stop talking about the Western way of the wholeness, and we should start saying about the political way of wholeness as a politics of control. We talk of wholeness only because it belongs to a politics of control. Maybe that makes it quite Western, but you know what I mean. I mean, even in that sense, like even in the Renaissance or deep modernity, there were never like a narrative that was that strict and that definite.
The problem is that even the politics of the fragment is also the politics of the whole, because it so that in that sense it's a very tricky pathway. Coming back to your comment about collective consciousness, almost nobody dares in the AI world talk about consciousness yet. I think they all talk about intelligence. So we have to be a bit careful about bringing in such loaded terms, because consciousness is like the final frontier, you know. And they don't even claim, like very few people claim that there is artificial general intelligence, AGI, but that's again, you know, very far from consciousness, artificial consciousness. So just to I would have, if there is no other question or in the...
Just one small thought that about affect and the emotions, etc. We try, you know, to preserve the only human dimension that affective or emotion is human, just human, and we cannot share with machines. It's interesting to hear this from a culture that gives no attention to affect. I mean, we don't, as a culture, we don't educate our children, ourselves, emotionally. It's very interesting how emotionally uneducated we are, how little attention our culture gives to emotions, and how to recognize, how to communicate them, how to develop, and on the other hand, we claim emotion as the uniquely human. We're very strong in this, which is an interesting contradiction, cultural contradiction.
Absolutely.
Just,
of course, one has to say that letting AI aside, there is a huge domain in computer science which is called affective computing, exactly, and trying to trace and codify and communicate affect, essentially. And this is much, much older. Just a final question, maybe. You're mentioning recommendation systems and maybe deep learning, but we are a few steps already forward, and I was wondering, how would you modulate your questions about inclusiveness and about essentially anthropology, what is human? Because that's an existential ontological question in the face of generative AI, whereby you don't, you have systems that really do produce works of art. That's we are there, like we are beyond that already. And given the fact that most developers do admit that we don't need a replacement, but rather a synergy between human and machine, human and AI. So I think that modulates a lot the questions you very rightly put. And I would be very interested in following up your responses to this sort of updating of the actual state of the art of AI.
I think it will be interesting to research it. I think ethnography in this case, it will be very interesting to see what happens in the field. I have no idea. I really have no idea. It's very new for me too. It's all these questions: what is art? Why is especially creativity? I mean, things that we are very, very strongly, you know. But I think that my general way of thinking is that we really take ourselves very seriously. I mean, we believe that if the Western culture, you know, if our art, if our creativity, our notions or our history extincts, the whole world extincts. Come on, guys. I mean, we're just stardust. I mean, in a more general, you know, because people have already, these are the questions of the privileged, whose culture, I mean, there are people who have been destroyed and are being destroyed, and our worst nightmares have already been a reality for them. So I think when we are talking about the world, about intelligence, about creativity, about art, actually we mean about very specific histories, about very specific. So it will not be the end of the world. If this happens, it will be the end of probably a history of the world, not the history. This is my general, I mean, I don't know if it's cynical. I think it's more realistic, more
post-humanist.
definitely post-human. I totally believe that there is a really interesting questions there and critique. But yeah, this. I don't know yet, but you know, it's the first.
Thank you so much. On that,
Just
absolutely.
On this direction, exactly. I mean, we're discussing whether, you know, AI and humans are different, but I don't think that humans and technology are different at all. I think that their history have been intertwined for many years, forever. And I think that in this sense, if we say that it's the humans and the machines together, and that we can't even talk about a collective consciousness, because what is collective in this sense? Because I think that we're thinking that, you know, for something to be collective, you know, it has to include us, but only us, you know, you know, you understand what I mean? There are many inventions or many things that they have happened that they would never have happened without the technology that was invented, and technology invents other technology. So I think that we are like that anyway. And, you know, we see whatever happens. It's okay if we are also eliminated. Okay, you know, fine.
On that second optimistic note, I give
Nobody's gonna cry.
How to destroy those cultures.
Great. I had some thoughts about your job, which actually really great. And thank you for introducing to us here. And maybe Eva and Dana and Nefeli could tell something more about what I will start and try to say. I was thinking that listening is not a process that actually only includes our ear, but is a sense that maybe you know, consider all our body. And I was wondering about Oliveiros and this, you know, scroll to listen with your feet and things like that. So maybe through your job, could we expand the way that we, you know, consider listening, and maybe learn from those people how they listen in the way with all their body, because actually sound is a vibration for all of us. Okay, so
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't know, maybe Eva or I want to say more about that. No.
Maybe I can start and give you some inspiration. No. Very briefly, we come from this school of thought anyway, you know, because we have done a lot of soundscapes, composition, active listening, you know, we come from this. It's not something new. This is what we like so much, the work of our colleagues. So this is how we went also to this project, you know, coming from listening anyway. And it is very interesting for us as well to listen, to see how, you know, people with different ways of listening can also listen, and we can listen together, and maybe we can expand the way of listening. This is where we come from.
Let's welcome Sisi and Yona and Devi and Nikos Poulakis. Thank you so much for all your efforts, and tell us what's next.
I don't know if you can hear me. Ακούτε, παιδιά?
Έλα ρε Γιώνα, πού είσαι?
Εδώ, Αμέρικα. I just wanted to congratulate everyone, and I can't tell you how unbelievably happy I am to see this initiative take off and to see that we have so many friends interested in similar topics, and I can't wait to see what's to come next. Συγχαρητήρια σε όλους και ανυπομονώ το επόμενο.
Γιώνα, σε ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Νίκο.
Νίκο, γεια σου.
Would you like to start?
Γεια σας.
Όπως θέλεις, ελληνικά, αγγλικά, όπως νιώθεις εσύ καλύτερα.
Νομίζω ότι κάποια πράγματα τα ακούσατε και από την Ελένη στην αρχή, οπότε με ενημέρωσε, γιατί εγώ δεν μπορούσα να μπω από το πρωί στα αγγλικά. Ό,τι θέλετε, μπορώ να το πω και στα ελληνικά ή στα αγγλικά. Ξεκινάω στα ελληνικά και βλέπουμε, εντάξει, αν είναι κάνουμε και ένα γρήγορο στα αγγλικά. Λοιπόν, η Γιώνα δυστυχώς δεν μπόρεσε να μείνει για πολύ μαζί μας, ήταν και το θέμα με τη διαφορά της ώρας. Αλλά να πω αρχικά εδώ πέρα ότι ξεκίνησε όλο αυτό από μια ιδέα της Γιώνα, στην οποία η πρώτη ομάδα συμμετείχε θερμά σε αυτό το κάλεσμα. Νομίζω και η παρουσία σήμερα του κοινού δίνει το εύρος, εντάξει, της προσπάθειας αυτής, το οποίο ελπίζουμε να αναπτυχθεί ακόμα περισσότερο. Να μιλήσω λίγο πιο τυπικά τώρα. Αυτή η Διεθνής Ερευνητική Κολεκτίβα για τη Δημοφιλή Μουσική στην Ελλάδα δημιουργήθηκε σε μια προσπάθεια να αποτελέσει, θα λέγαμε, ένα διεπιστημονικό φόρουμ για να μελετηθεί συστηματικά η δημοφιλής μουσική σε διάφορα πλαίσια, με βασικό στόχο κυρίως να διευρύνει αυτή ή και να ξεπεράσει ενδεχομένως την παραδοσιακή ακαδημαϊκή λογική περί δημοφιλούς μουσικής και να ενσωματώσει διαφορετικές οπτικές από ποικίλα σχετικά αντικείμενα, από διαφορετικά πεδία ενδιαφέροντος, ξεχωριστές μεθοδολογίες για την προσέγγιση της δημοφιλούς μουσικής, είτε ελληνικής είτε όχι. Και το ενδιαφέρον βέβαια εδώ πέρα είναι ότι αυτό να γίνει μέσα από μια διαδικασία κοινοτικής συλλογικότητας. Πρόθεση του αρχικά άτυπου πρώτου πυρήνα των μελών αυτής της συλλογικότητας ήταν να διερευνήσει πώς το πεδίο της δημοφιλούς μουσικής μπορεί να αποτελέσει περιβάλλον διαλόγου μεταξύ παλαιότερων, νεότερων, εναλλακτικών, ακόμα και πειραματικών προσεγγίσεων της δημοφιλούς μουσικής. Το έργο της κολεκτίβας υλοποιείται στη βάση μιας ανοιχτής μεθοδολογίας οργάνωσης, η οποία λαμβάνει υπόψη της τόσο την ποικιλομορφία του αντικειμένου, διαφορετικά μουσικά είδη, μορφές, περίοδοι, περιστάσεις, ακροατήρια, χώροι, επιτελέσεις κλπ. Όσο και τις διαφορετικές μεθοδολογίες περιγραφής, ανάλυσης και ερμηνείας των φαινομένων αυτών, αλλά και τις ζυμώσεις της ίδιας της ομάδας που προετοιμάζει την εκάστοτε δράση της κοινότητας. Σε πρώτη φάση αποφασίστηκε να διοργανώνται 2 δράσεις της συλλογικότητας ανά έτος, μία διαζώσεις, συνάντηση και μία διαδικτυακή όπως η σημερινή, η οποία θα δίνει τη δυνατότητα εξ αποστάσεως παρακολούθησης τόσο από μέλη της συλλογικότητας όσο και από το ευρύτερο κοινό που αδυνατούν να συμμετέχουν στη διαζώσεις. Η εμπειρία της πρώτης συνάντησης της Κόπελο πέρυσι, το καλοκαίρι, ήταν νομίζω καθοριστική για τη διαμόρφωση μιας έτσι, αρκετά θερμής, φιλικής, συναδελφικής, αλλά ταυτόχρονα και ουσιαστικής επιστημονικής συνάντησης, με αφορμή ένα αντικείμενο που ενδιέφερε σε ένα ευρύτερο πλαίσιο, θα λέγαμε, τους συμμετέχοντες. Αν και στις πρώτες 3 εκδηλώσεις του εγχειρήματος η συλλογικότητα κινείται προτείνοντας εισηγήσεις σε συγκεκριμένα πρόσωπα από το χώρο, από διαφορετικά βέβαια πεδία και οπτικές μελέτης. Στη νέα φάση της διεύρυνσης της κοινότητας ελπίζουμε ότι θα καταφέρουμε να ανοίξουμε περισσότερο τις δυνατότητες συμμετοχής και άλλων επιστημόνων από την Ελλάδα και το εξωτερικό που ασχολούνται με το συγκεκριμένο θέμα. Βλέποντας και τη μεγάλη συμμετοχή στη σημερινή ημερίδα, πιστεύω ότι αυτό είναι δυνατόν να επιτευχθεί, να τα καταφέρουμε, καθώς φαίνεται να υπάρχει χώρος, κοινό και ενδιαφέρον για αυτό το αντικείμενο και αυτές τις μεθοδολογίες. Το δίκτυο των συμμετεχόντων στη συλλογικότητα σιγά σιγά αναπλαταίνει, ανοίγει. Έχουμε ήδη δημιουργήσει λίστα ηλεκτρονικού ταχυδρομείου για την επικοινωνία των μελών και πρόσφατα μια ιστοσελίδα που φιλοξενείται από το Πανεπιστήμιο του Ιλινόη στη Γιώνα Σταμάτης και μια αντίστοιχη ομάδα στο Facebook. Κλείνοντας, θα ήθελα να καταθέσω και μια πρόταση στην κατεύθυνση για μια πιο ανοιχτή τέτοια κοινότητα δημοφιλούς μουσικής στην Ελλάδα, να ενταχθούν στις εργασίες της συλλογικότητας και δράσεις που δεν αφορούν αυστηρά, ας πούμε, ακαδημαϊκές μορφές συνάντησης, συνέδρια, ημερίδες ή σεμινάρια κλπ. Αλλά κάτι πιο μη ακαδημαϊκό. Θα το δούμε αυτό. Αυτό είναι κάτι που προφανώς θα αποφασιστεί μέσα από τις διαδικασίες. Και προς το παρόν δίνω το λόγο στη Σύση Θεοδοσίου να μας μιλήσει λίγο για την επόμενη διαζώση συνάντηση της συλλογικότητας στο Δελβινάκι Υπήρου.
Λοιπόν, ευχαριστώ πολύ Νίκο. Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ τις διοργανώτριες και τους διοργανωτές. Εγώ είμαι πάρα πολύ συγκινημένη γιατί βλέπουμε όλοι ότι όλο αυτό κατάφερε από μόνο του να απογειωθεί. Θα κάνω switch στα αγγλικά τώρα, έτσι μιας και για να υπάρχει και μια αλλαγή. I think that today's meeting was extraordinary on all sorts of forms. And I think it comes as a result of the wonderful atmosphere and bond that was created in Skopelos. At the same time, for me personally, it proves that collectives without hierarchies and without institutional kind of framework can be a fun and effective way to work. And more importantly, this kind of today's event brings to the focus the potentialities of this research field, as Nikos and all the rest obviously indicated before. So now what's next? Our next meeting will be held in July, between the 13th and the 16th of July in Delvinaki. Delvinaki happens to be my village. It's on the Greek-Albanian border next to Kakavia. It's an hour away from Yanina. It will be a face-to-face meeting, as we want to keep the intimacy and the kind of liveness of this second meeting, despite the limitation it involves in terms of logistics, the number of participants, etc. And through this meeting, we want also, for one more time, to enlarge our group. So we are going we are growing not rapidly, but steadily, I would say. And of course, we would like to keep our kind of principles. We have never actually articulated these kind of principles clearly, but among us, these are kind of, I think, a well-known secret. So we want to be independent. That's why we don't want to have an umbrella by a sponsor or anything like that. We want to be collective. We want to be non-hierarchical. We want, of course, crucially to be interdisciplinary. And of course, we want to somehow be connected to peripheral places. That's why initially we went to Skopelos, and now we are going to a very remote place on the Greek-Albanian border. And somehow kind of create a kind of interaction with the local societies. So what we envisage for the summer meeting is to create some very small-scale events like screenings for the locals of ethnographic films around music, or for the kids of the village, or organizing a small-scale music event. Not really something big, but something that in a way creates a kind of, what's the word, reciprocity between us as a community of scholars and, of course, the local community. For us also, what is really very important is to somehow ensure the equal participation of students as much as we can, and also precarious colleagues. I'm saying that because it's not always easy to secure funding in terms of funding, transportation, and the accommodation for the speakers. So, for instance, last year, that was a privilege provided to us by the Rebetiko International Conference, through Iona, of course. This time, we did manage to have accommodation, some sort of accommodation, not for all people, secured, supported by the local municipality. And we will have a local bus kind of going us around and having this kind of organization. I'm envisaging this kind of organization, but it's not, of course, all the time easy to secure free accommodation for all. So what we do actually is that we say whoever has the ability to pay for his or her own kind of accommodation, we do that, but we make sure that students and precarious colleagues won't have to pay. So we are now, just to finish, we are now in the process of completing the invitation of speakers, having in mind on the one hand interdisciplinarity, as I said before, and on the other to have original pieces of work presented. Our aim, of course, is to plan while there and while kind of having the time to see and mingle with each other, to plan our next step as a collective. Of course, the meeting is open to everybody. And we will welcome everybody to participate in the conference. And of course, we will be discussing the possibility of organizing the next meetings of the collective on a different basis, kind of on a call of paper basis. And now I'm passing the floor to Evie Paschiaura, who is also a member of the organizing committee of the summer event. As you notice, we have two different committees here. And the idea is that each year, different committees organize different events. So it's a kind of rotation obligation to the collective. So Evie is going to speak more a bit about the topic. So we are here for more questions. Thank you. And thank you so much, all the speakers, and to all the organizing committee. And of course, to all the media committee. I think they have done an amazing job. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sisi. Hi again, everyone, and huge congratulations for the realization of such an amazing and thought-provoking event. I am indeed thrilled to be part of this now and for the forthcoming conference. Well, I guess among a very wide range of themes we could select from in coming about with a new sort of conference theme, was a theme pertinent to the idea of politics and identities, very broadly defined. So we have made up our minds toward the theme popular music in Greece, politics and identities for the forthcoming summer conference. And having attended today's discussion, I was glad to see that such issues have already been highlighted. So looking forward to more. I guess we depart from thinking about popular music as a vehicle in the making and reflection of politics and identities in Greek geopolitical space and beyond. Even though starting off with much value judgment from fields like musicology, philosophy, sociology, today's international academic interest in popular music embraces the multitude of agencies involved in the making of popular music, which in turn allows for a continuous interrogation of what constitutes the popular in both music and culture. This development, I think, has potential implications for academia and its audiences. So along such lines, our summer meeting takes on board the need for understanding popular music under an interdisciplinary scope, as already highlighted, that welcomes responses from music, sound studies, anthropology, history, sociology, literature, and politics, to name a few of the fields involved. As with our summer 2023 meeting and today's conference, the terms popular music and Greekness as well as politics and identities pertinent to the Summer 24 conference, are perceived as points of departure, I would say, for constructive debate that interrogates their boundaries, meanings, and configurations in both academic and everyday discourses. So some of our opening questions for that conference are: how does popular music interfere with politics and identity making in historical and contemporary settings where Greekness is constructed, negotiated, or reclaimed? More specifically, how does popular music relate to identities and politics of gender and sexuality, nationality and ethnicity, political and religious affiliation, class, age, as well as professional occupation, including a range of positionalities from stardom to ordinary and amateur musicianship? How do diverse audiences engage popular music to express identity and politics on both individual and collective levels? How similar or different are issues of popular music in Greece to such issues in other geopolitical territories? And what can the Greek case perhaps contribute to broader discussions about the intersection of popular music, politics, and identities? How may issues of identity and politics concern not only the settings and communities we study, but also the agencies and positionalities of our own selves as researchers? And finally, what kinds of ethical implications are involved in our methodologies and epistemologies? And what steps are we to follow for the well-being of both our academic fields and broader audiences? We do hope that beyond such questions, the conference discussions will address intersections of identity, politics, and popular music with other key phenomena of our times, including health and environment, digital media, precarity, mobility, to name a few. And we already have on board a very diverse group of speakers in terms of disciplinary background and career stage, as already mentioned, and planning to send out a few more invitations. So stay tuned, and thank you very much for listening. If there are any questions, we're very happy to answer. And who shall I pass the floor on to then? The on-site team.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ για αυτές τις... Ναι. Για αυτές τις παρουσιάσεις της ομάδας μας, της συλλογικότητας και για τα επόμενα σχέδια. Δεν ξέρω αν έχουμε να προσθέσουμε κάτι. Το κοινό ρωτάει βέβαια αν υπάρχει δυνατότητα, αλλά νομίζω η Αλεξάνδρα απαντάει, για τον τρόπο με τον οποίο κάποιος ή κάποια θα ήθελε να συμμετάσχει στην ομάδα ή να μπει σε ένα mailing list που θα παίρνει ειδοποιήσεις για τις διοργανώσεις τέλος πάντων που θα κάνουμε.
Ναι, υπάρχει το mailing list. Καλό είναι να σταλεί ένα μήνυμα, φαντάζομαι, στο mail που έχουμε για όσους δεν χρησιμοποιούν Facebook.
Ναι.
Τώρα το Σαράτο έχει προκύψει νέα λίστα από την ημερίδα.
Ακριβώς. Οπότε κάθε φορά, σε κάθε event, ουσιαστικά μεγαλώνουμε τη λίστα μας και αυτό είναι το διαδοχικό που έλεγα, αργό αλλά διαδοχικό και λοιπά. Θα προσπαθήσουμε να εξασφαλίσουμε, νομίζω ότι υπάρχουν οι προϋποθέσεις να έχουμε streaming από το YouTube στην ημερίδα του καλοκαιριού. Αλλά δεν θα έχει την υβριδική μορφή που έχει το συγκεκριμένο event. Καταλαβαίνετε ότι θέλουμε να διατηρήσουμε λίγο μία λογική άμεσης επαφής. Έτσι. Εγώ νομίζω ότι το τελευταίο που πρέπει να πείτε, παιδιά, είναι ποια ήταν η οργανωτική επιτροπή. Κανένας δεν το ξέρει.
Ξέρω, το έχουμε γράψει στην αφίσα, καλά, εντάξει.
Εντάξει τότε, οκ.
Όχι, εντάξει. Να πούμε όντως ότι είμαστε μια συλλογικότητα που περιλαμβάνει αρκετά άτομα, 10-15 άτομα πόσοι είμαστε, μπορεί και παραπάνω, και κάπως χωριστήκαμε σε δύο μικρότερες ομάδες για να μπορούμε να ανταπεξέλθουμε στις απαιτήσεις των διοργανώσεων. Τώρα συναντηθήκαμε 5 άτομα, να με σιγουρευτώ κιόλας.
Πρέπει να το διαβάσει.
Ναι. Κανονικά πρέπει να κάνω zoom με το τέτοιο, αλλά δεν θα το κάνω. Είναι...
Indeed.
Έβαλε και γυαλιά.
Nice. I'm Onasi. Είναι η Γεωργία η Βάβα.
Είσαι σίγουρος?
Ναι, μπράβο. Πού το γράφω. Είναι η Γεωργία η Βάβα. Από το τμήμα, τέλος πάντων, αυτή τη στιγμή είναι στο τμήμα πολιτισμού και δημιουργικών μέσων και βιομηχανιών στο Πανεπιστήμιο Θεσσαλίας. Είναι η Μαριλένα Εγάτσιου, αυτή τη στιγμή στο Πάντιο Πανεπιστήμιο. Η Ελένη Καλυμοπούλου, στο τμήμα μουσικών σπουδών του Πανεπιστημίου Αθηνών. Η Αλεξάνδρα Καραμούτσιου, στο τμήμα μουσικών σπουδών του ΑΠΙΘ. Και ο Λέοναρδος Κυριακόπουλος, εγώ, τέλος πάντων στο ΕΚΠΑ, στο Πανεπιστήμιο Αθηνών. Και εμείς μοιραστήκαμε όλες τις δουλειές να φέρουμε πέρα σε αυτήν την εκδήλωση. Είμαστε πάρα πολύ χαρούμενοι και χαρούμενες που καταρχήν μας εμπιστευτήκατε, να το πω και αυτό. Θα το φέρουμε εις πέρας, το καταφέραμε. Και που αγαπήθηκε αρκετά, που ο κόσμος θέλησε να συμμετάσχει, να τα ακούσει και ελπίζω πραγματικά και οι εισηγήσεις να ήταν αρκετά καλές, ώστε να έδωσε τέλος πάντων τροφή για περισσότερη σκέψη και κυρίως να ήταν ενδιαφέρουσες οι παρουσιάσεις και να χάρει και ο κόσμος που τις άκουσε.
Ήτανε όλα αυτά. Να προσθέσω μόνο ότι στη δική μας επιτροπή, επειδή μιλήσαμε όλοι εμείς, εγώ, η Γιώνα, ο Νίκος και η Εύη, είναι και ο Paddy League, έτσι, έχουμε 2 διασπορικά υποκείμενα, αλλά δεν μπόρεσε να είναι σίγουρα μαζί μας, δεν βοηθούσε πάρα πολύ και η διαφορά της ώρας, αλλά είναι σίγουρα στην επιτροπή. Και ετοιμαζόμαστε, φαντάζομαι και εσείς και εμείς, οι 2 επιτροπές, να κάνουμε handover σε μια νέα επιτροπή, σε 2 νέες επιτροπές για τον χρόνο. Έτσι, αυτό είναι το σημαντικό. Να ξέρουν όσοι θέλουν να μπουν στην κολεκτίβα, ότι θα έχουν και υποχρεώσεις. Αυτά.
Ωραία.